Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff, not a metaphorical one, a real one. The wind roars against your ears. Below, the abyss stretches into darkness. There is no guardrail, no fence, just you and the void. One step forward and everything ends. Your heart races, palms sweat, your thoughts splinter. But here's the twist. This isn't fear of death, it's fear of life. You're terrified not of falling, but of jumping. Not because you want to die, but because some part of you, buried, broken, disowned, has always wanted to feel something this real, this intense, this raw. That part of you whispers, what if you lived like this every day? You step back from the edge. You return to your job, your phone, your daily rituals of distraction. The cliff fades, but the question remains. What are you really afraid of? It's not spiders, or failure, or public speaking. It's something far more dangerous, far more intimate. You are afraid of yourself, afraid of your potential, afraid of your darkness, afraid of what would happen if you stopped pleasing, stopped pretending, and truly lived according to your own truth. Because deep down, you know something society never taught you. That real freedom, terrifying, wild, magnificent freedom, comes with a price. And Nietzsche, he understood this. He lived it. He burned for it. He once wrote, "The secret for harvesting from existence the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously, not recklessly, not impulsively, but dangerously," meaning to live without asking permission, to live without apology, to live without fear. But how? How do you live without fear in a world built to keep you obedient, safe, and numb? Is it even possible to walk away from the cage when you've spent your whole life decorating the bars? Ask yourself, why does fear always win, even when you know it's lying? Why do you sabotage your boldest ideas, your wildest hopes? Why does authenticity feel like rebellion and obedience feel like safety? Why does freedom feel so dangerous? Could it be that the thing you call fear is actually the doorway to your highest self? And if so, what if everything you've been taught about avoiding fear was actually a trap? Nietzsche didn't fear being misunderstood. He didn't fear madness. He didn't even fear solitude. What he feared was what he called slave morality, a life lived beneath one's own truth, shackled by guilt, duty, and the opinions of the mediocre. He believed the modern human had become too tame, too comfortable. We traded risk for stability, passion for peace, meaning for mediocrity. And in doing so, we lost something essential, the will to live with courage. What if fear is not the enemy? What if fear is the threshold, the invitation, the divine dare? You are not here to be safe. You are here to become something terrifyingly real. As Nietzsche once said, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. So then, what is this chaos within you? What have you locked away in the name of peace, comfort, and approval? And most importantly, are you willing to open that door, even if it means shattering the life you've carefully built to feel safe? Because this is where it begins. Not with a plan, not with a guru, but with a rupture, a crack in the illusion, a moment on the edge. The part of you that is ready to live without fear is not buried under more positivity or another morning routine. It's behind the door you're most afraid to open. And Nietzsche, he holds the key. But first, we must understand why this fear runs so deep, where it truly comes from, and what happens when we let it control us. Let's go deeper. You weren't born afraid. You were taught to be. Fear, for most of us, doesn't start with real danger. It starts with disapproval, with shame, with a quiet voice whispering, "Don't be too loud, don't be too different, don't be too much." As a child, your boldness was not met with celebration, but containment. Your curiosity was not nourished, but redirected. You were shaped not into your true self, but into a version of you that was acceptable, safe, and normal. And that shaping, the psychological pruning of your wildness, is the root of fear. Carl Jung called this the creation of the persona, the mask you wear to fit into society, the agreeable self, the adaptable self, the self that avoids conflict and receives praise. But Jung warned us, the stronger the persona, the more powerful the shadow. That is, the parts of yourself you had to exile just to survive. Your anger, your madness, your creativity, your sexuality, your courage. You learned to fear your own shadow, because society taught you that your depth was dangerous. Nietzsche saw this too. He spoke of the herd, the collective pressure to conform, to obey, to remain small. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he writes, "You have your way. I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist." But the world doesn't reward uniqueness. It rewards obedience. The obedient child becomes the well-behaved student. The well-behaved student becomes the predictable adult, and the predictable adult becomes afraid of his own thoughts. This is the hidden problem. Fear isn't rooted in the unknown. It's rooted in the suppression of the known. You fear the life you know you're capable of living, but won't allow yourself to touch. Nietzsche understood this suppression as a kind of internal resentment, what he called ressentiment. When your soul is caged for too long, it begins to rot. It turns against itself. It blames others. It blames the world. It becomes bitter, sarcastic, lifeless. And so, you stay afraid. Not because danger is real, but because your soul remembers what happened the last time it tried to be free. Do you see it now? The fear that governs modern life is not the fear of dying. It's the fear of fully living, of stepping out of line, of saying what you really think, of becoming what Nietzsche called the Übermensch, the overman, the higher self, the human being who creates his own values and refuses to kneel to the mediocre expectations of the crowd. But to reach that level of consciousness, to live beyond fear, you must pass through the fire of existential courage. You must stop asking, "What will people think?" and start asking, "What does my soul demand?" And this is where the true philosophical weight of Nietzsche's work lands like a thunderbolt. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche. This quote, often misused as a motivational platitude, points to a deeper reality. Fear evaporates in the presence of purpose. When you are aligned with your why, you no longer negotiate with fear. You walk through it. But most people never reach that point. Why? Because modern society has buried the why under comfort, convenience, and distraction. We sedate ourselves with endless entertainment. We confuse being busy with being alive. We chase careers, followers, and affirmations, while our inner voice grows quieter each year. Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher. He was a psychological prophet. He warned that the modern world would become a place where God is dead, meaning is absent, and mediocrity is celebrated. He foresaw the rise of the last man, a creature who fears pain, avoids challenge, and lives only for momentary pleasure. The last man does not live. He merely survives. Is that who you've become? Are you obeying out of fear or choosing out of truth? You may believe you're avoiding risk, but the greater risk is never confronting who you really are. This is the paradox at the heart of Nietzsche's message. To live without fear, you must first confront the terrifying reality that your life is yours, entirely. No one is coming to save you. No one can tell you who to be. You must create yourself. This is not comforting, but it is liberating. Because once you see that fear is not some external enemy, but a mirror reflecting your unclaimed power, then you begin to shift. The chains feel looser. The persona starts to crack. The real you begins to stir. And so we must ask, what did you abandon in yourself to be accepted? Who would you become if you stopped asking for permission? Can you bear the responsibility of your own freedom? Because Nietzsche believed you could. And more than that, he believed you must. But knowing this is not enough. You need to see the consequences of refusing the call, of staying small, of continuing to let fear rule your inner world. You need to understand what's really at stake if you don't break free. Nietzsche didn't believe life became beautiful in spite of its suffering. He once wrote, Live as though you were living for the second time and had acted wrongly the first time. Imagine being given your exact life again, but this time knowing that every decision mattered, every hesitation, every silence, every moment you held back your truth out of fear. That is the eternal return, not a mystical concept, but a psychological reckoning. If you were to live this day, this life, again and again for eternity, what would you change? Would you finally speak the words you've swallowed for years? Would you chase the thing that scared you to death but made you feel alive? Would you stop pretending? This is Nietzsche's final provocation, to live a life you would be willing to relive, not because it was easy, but because it was yours, fully, unapologetically yours. And that is the death of fear, not the absence of risk, not the presence of confidence, but the realization that nothing is more terrifying than a life unlived. The fear of death fades when you realize what's worse, dying without ever having been yourself. He did not want you to live a safe life. He wanted you to live a worthy one.